Welcome in. It is another edition of Brave Central. Barrett Salee and Chris Domino with you. Don't forget to like, remind, share this show with everybody that you know. We are your source for everything Atlanta Braves. Of course, we are the hosts of the Ford Leadoff Show on the Braves Radio Network. And Chris, a little bit of a disappointing series with Philadelphia comes to a positive end, and then the Chicago Cubs just rip all that goodwill away with a walk-off win on Monday night. A lot of the same. Strider, decent performance, but the bats can't get it going when it matters most. It's just the same story over and over again. But I think with Spencer Strider, again, learning how to pitch without his wipeout pitch, without his 100-mile-an-hour fastball, that continues to be something that he needs to work on, and he's doing a pretty good job of that.
So if you're old enough, you remember a guy named Frank Tanana who absolutely threw bullets early in his career, and he had to not only rethink it, but he had to change everything he did. He became sort of a guy who flipped pitches as opposed to just blew things by you. Now that was later in his career. It was a little bit more time that he actually had the fastball before he had to make this change. And I'm not saying this is what Spencer Strider is going to be for the next 10 years. He'll be a guy who figures out how to pitch, and he'll get people out without that pitch, the fastball. I don't know. I watched Sandy Alcantara. If you want a little bit of good news, Sandy Alcantara, maybe it took a little bit longer than people would have wanted, but he certainly now seems to have his giddy-up back, and maybe that's a good sign. Maybe this is just a matter of time before that pitch comes. If Spencer Strider learns how to curveball, if he wants to use it, if he learns how to efficiency of pitches, not necessarily looking to challenge people all day long, figuring out how the non-strikes become strikes, that'll be nothing but good news if and when the fastball comes back and it has the life that it did certainly back in 2023.
I thought it was interesting after the game yesterday. He said that it really helped him because at the stadium at Wrigley Field, they have all of those advanced analytic numbers in real time. So he could literally look at the scoreboard and see exactly how much vertical break, horizontal break, and blah, 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 and all that stuff. And for some pitchers, that doesn't matter. And for him, I'm imagining that's like Disneyland, where he can find out all of this stuff in real time. So he is, I think, he understands where he is. And the velocity, for Spencer, obviously he wants it back. I think there's no doubt about that. But I think the challenge of trying to figure out how to win and how to be successful without it, he's, I think, welcome that, I think, with open arms. He finds that as a challenge. And yeah, like you said, if he can figure this out, how good can he possibly be when he gets that 100 back? He's going to be even more dominant than he was before. So, there are blessings, there are curses, there are, things that we need to look at going down to the end of the season. But I think what Spencer's going through right now, like you said, Sandy Alcantara, it came back for him. Maybe it takes a little longer for Spencer, but once it does, he's just going to be a much better pitcher, even more so than he was before.
Yeah.
So that part's exciting. I really think that that's one thing that we need to look at before the season comes to an end.
Let me give you the cheap, easy movie analogy. In the movie Apollo 13, dump it on the table. What do you got? Because what you got is what you got. Can't create anything new. So how do you win? How do you figure out a way to put the pieces together? And again, that I agree with you. He I don't want to say he's relishing in this because nobody wants to actually have to reinvent themselves, even if it's for a short amount of time. Some guys actually will look at it as a little bit more of a challenge as opposed to hangdogging it, and I think he's one of those guys. That's all well and good. I just think when you just said the live analytics and everything else, I'm not telling you Bob Gibson might not have wanted a little more information, but it's the difference of where we are today. And it's kind of interesting, too, because if young pitchers, and we have heard about this, if you become too reliant or you don't know how to read the information or it's garbage in, garbage out, but it just clogs you or it makes you a little bit less effective because you're thinking about things that go beyond, can I get ahead 0-1? Can I make sure the 1-1 pitch is the one that I'm convicted with? I don't like, and I don't think it's for him. I'll use the word distraction. I kind of don't like the distraction of some of this stuff because I think it's a crutch. I think it becomes, oh no, I don't have that pitch today. And quite honestly, okay, you should know that. Like, I don't think I need a number or a board or something to tell me what I have working and what I don't, if this is what I do for a living, especially if you get a few years into your career. I just don't want the woe is me. Today I don't have that pitch. What do I do now? I thought one of the beautiful things about baseball is you with your catcher trying to get by on days that you're not as good. I let's just say it's 30 starts. What are you going to have? You're going to have 5 starts where everything is working. You're God. I mean, you are God. Then you're going to have 5 where you have nothing. And you know it and everybody knows, but you got to sort of smile and fake it and, hold your presence. So let's say you have 20 where it can go either way. I have one pitch, but I don't have the other. Well, that's the difference between being up here and being one of 5, being one of 150 or not. And unless you are truly blessed, and there are handfuls that are truly blessed, most guys live in that world of, those 20 starts will determine whether I get a chance to do it this year, next year, if somebody gives me a 6-year deal, or I'm singing for my supper, every year. So I don't want somebody to be overly reliant on that. Although, again, I think he grew up in the age where maybe he understands what to do with it better than others. It's just nothing that I'm really thrilled with when I realize that they're just numbers on a piece of paper sometimes.
I do love that scene in Apollo 13. We got to make this out of that using nothing but that. That shows you how innovative those guys were. That's one of my favorite scenes. Ha-Seong Kim coming off of waivers from the Rays to the Braves. Should be there today. We'll see if he's in the starting lineup. It does sound like, based on things that Snit has said, that he probably will be quite often moving forward. So it's an interesting risk, and not one that I really expected. I don't think you did either. $16 million player option for next season. He has been riddled by injuries. His 2023 was very good. Well, not very good. It was good enough, and certainly worth the $14 million. He can run. He can hit. Maybe not for power, but he can get on base. He walks. And I think the health is the biggest issue. So now you're looking at Ha-Seong Kim as potentially the Braves shortstop in 2026. Now, yes, he can choose not to take $16 million. I don't know why anybody would do that. But to me, it sort of suggests that maybe Bichette has priced himself out of the Braves market. Not out of the entire market, but out of the Braves market, and that the shortstop crop in the offseason might not be anywhere close to what the Braves need it to be if they do want to fix what is, I wouldn't say a problem, but it's something they need to address. And they're addressing it with a guy. I would say upside is there. Risk is very high on the Braves' part, though.
So he hasn't played a lot this year. He had a stint. Then he was gone for 10 days, then he came back, and he hasn't played again. When I hear back, I get a little bit nervous. Young guys with backs usually become old guys with backs. But the 2023, he was sort of on that list of, if you're going to replace Arcia, he could be a guy. And then Tampa came in and gave him, I think, $29 million with a chance to make it to 31. But it was an op that's strictly a player op, by the way. So, yeah, he'll have a decision to make, and if he's not on the field very much in September, I'll tell you what he's doing. He's opted into a $16 million, and he's going to be the Braves shortstop as long as he's healthy and get healthy and stay healthy. He had 17 homers. The Braves don't have a home run from shortstop this year, which seems impossible, but it's true. And I know how I feel about Nick Allen. Nick Allen to me is perfect if everything else is in line, and everything else is in line is he's your 9-hole hitter, and I don't expect anything really from him offensively. If that's not something they could live with, they got a guy who hit 17 home runs in 2023. A guy who could steal bases. We'll find out if health precludes him from maybe being that guy again. Defensively, they thought enough of him to give him a Gold Glove. I don't know. Again, I don't try to figure out who earns it and who doesn't. But he was a $29 million player for 2 years, no doubt about it. He doesn't feel that way right now. But the Braves might actually have a cheaper one-year option. And look, this team has also been known to say, prove that you're healthy, and maybe there's an extension. Maybe it's just not a one-year deal now. Maybe you don't want to do that again, and I'm only talking about a year or two. If you think that he proves that he's healthy and you go, I want you to be our shortstop going forward for at least a couple of years, maybe he's viable. He's certainly of an age where that could happen. He just has to get on the field and prove he's that type of player again. I just get nervous when I hear a back. You know, there are a lot of injuries. I think when you got feet and back, those are the two that I go, I don't think they really ever heal themselves.
Yeah, and I think for the Braves, you know, really about around the world in Major League Baseball in general, the shortstop market is going to be dictated by Bo Bichette. And he has played himself into a massive, massive contract. And so if that was part of a plan, if it was plan A, plan B, plan C, or whatever for the Braves, you know, or before this season, even during this season, that seems like a big ask to pay all that money to Bo Bichette, because he's going to get several teams, I think, into a bidding war. So this is I think you're right. It's a risky move for the Braves right now, but the upside is there. He can play himself into a couple-year contract if he's successful. So I like him. We talked about him a little bit during this past offseason. I remember talking about him along with some other names. Aaron Nola was one that was, you know, it was just one of those things that the name kept popping up. And,
yeah, he was,
you know, it didn't happen.
He was 2 years ago because when it was RCS.
Oh, 2 years ago. You're right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but the Braves were on that little list of teams that might have an interest in him. Remember, he opted out of like an $8 million deal in San Diego, so he hit at the right time. That 17 homer stolen bases Gold Glove earned him a 2-year deal for 29 with a chance to go to 31. But yeah, he was on the Braves short list because everybody said, well, I'm not really sure if Orlando Arcia is an answer. Maybe you can get this guy at a reasonable price. The Bo Bichette thing, I don't think anybody really learns their lessons or gets scared off. The Willie Adames, Dansby Swanson, what are we doing in terms of giving these guys $25 million plus at shortstop? Because if and when it goes and you're not elite, it's a lot of money to pay for a okay defensive player. And by the way, I don't think Bo Bichette is really an okay defensive shortstop. He's he's a tick below that. But you can live with it if he's hitting 25 bombs and doing some of the things that you're going to pay him to do offensively. So that's the trade-off. The trade-off is I want another offensive position, and I can live with the defense. Is somebody going to ask Bo Bichette to go to second base? Well, not unless you're paying him like a shortstop. You know, Simeon's one of those guys who got a lot of money. But some of these guys have not worked. Some of these shortstop contracts have not worked. We'll see. I think this certainly precludes the Braves from being involved in a Bo Bichette thing. If Kim is even going to be the shortstop here for just 1 year. I don't want to say it gets them out of having a deal in the Bo Bichette world, but it gets them out of having a deal in the Bo Bichette world because they could just say, look, we have a shortstop. So Bichette is probably going to be either, we'll see if Toronto really wants to pony up for another guy after the Vlad deal, or if somebody else wants to play I'll pay a lot of money for a shortstop because there's only one big name shortstop on the market coming up in 2026.
And from a financial standpoint, too, for the Braves, it gives you a little bit more clarity in terms of what you do have to work with for next season. And beyond that, you know, that remains to be seen. But at least you know how one of the pieces fits into the budget for next year. So, you know, it's going to be one of those interesting sort of twists to the 2026 season, one that I think there's no doubt the expectation is to get back to the playoffs, get to the World Series, and hopefully win it.
Let's finish up with this. Chris Sale wanted to be on the mound for normalcy. Spencer Strider wants normalcy. I'd like to see Kim play for a bulk of the month of September, because that will at least alleviate the idea that he's going to an off season. We all have questions about why couldn't he go? Why was it handfuls of games this year and not more? So if anything else now, if you look to September, him showing up in Chicago is one thing. Him playing for the month of September will be something completely different. Let's find out if he can do that to alleviate at least some of those fears.
You're right. Absolutely. We'll see what happens, and we'll see what happens this week. The next two games in Chicago, and then, of course, they're coming back here to Truist Park. He's Chris Domino, and I'm Barrett Salee. You can hear us on the Ford Leadoff Show across the Braves Radio Network. And, of course, this is the Braves Central podcast. Like it, share it with everybody you know, and we will talk to you later in the week.